Welcome to Leading the Follower with your host, Rebecca Benston. Welcome to Leading the Follower. I'm Rebecca Benston, and I am back again, trying to make an effort to do more regular podcasts. As long as God is giving me something to say, I will try to report it out here. But then, when He doesn't really give me anything, you'll notice that I'm quiet for a bit. So I have to go by His schedule, not mine. and sometimes life just makes it a bit impossible for me to have the quiet time and the space to sit down and do a podcast. So I am here. I am fortunate enough to have a little bit of time and a few thoughts that I wanted to share with you as well. The other day, I shared a little bit about reading through the book of James, starting out and trying to get a bit of wisdom from what God had given me in my prayer time. And I read down through probably, I think, verse 12 and talked a little bit about getting out of your own way and remembering God's authority over our own and being willing to walk the path and understand that there will be obstacles. Everything's not always going to be easy or instant. Sometimes we just have to deal with it, and we have to understand where the flaw might be our flaw, and it's not a flaw in God's plan for us. It's never a flaw in His plan for us. He is always 100% on point. We, on the other hand, tend to want things to go our way, and sometimes we forget to trust Him and believe that He knows best for us. So, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the whole original thought that I had the other day when I was reading through James. And let's see, the place to start. As I said, when I Googled what's the most motivational book in the Bible, it did point me in the direction of James. And once I got into reading it, I could see why. I've read it before, but in truth, it had never hit me in such a way that I thought, wow, this is like the most inspiring thing. But it really, really is. There's a lot of good stuff there. And I want to share a little more with you. So, we read a little bit about how blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him. And that definitely is a very encouraging verse. So, I want to start in, though, with verse 13. And this is not book. I kept saying that the last time where I was calling the chapter the book. I do know the difference between the book, the chapter, and the verse, but sometimes my brain doesn't filter through to my mouth and the wrong words come out. So I'm going to try to get it right today through the whole thing. Chapter 1, verse 13 is, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does He tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all He created. And then there's a subtitle here that says listening and doing, which is really the big theme that I'm dealing with this week. And it says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." And if that one didn't slap me right in my face, well, I don't know what would, because as I said, I have a very quick temper, and being angry is just like a natural thing for me. I I said last time, I do tend to kind of act with my emotions before I do the rational thing and think it through. And I really, really have to work hard sometimes to not just snap back at someone when I feel like they're approaching me in a negative way or in a way that's adversarial, because I'm always in that defend myself type of a mode. So, um, and I don't know that that will ever completely go away. It's just part of who I am and how I've come up in my life and the things that I've dealt with, and that's where it's put me. So it's not great. It's not ideal, obviously, but I know that this is something I do, and I want to, think it through. And the more I talk about it and the more I process it, the better I am at dealing with it. So, um, but yes, quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. This is where I was like, wow, okay, because it follows, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Well, yeah, okay. And then it says, "Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you." Of course. Um, Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourself. Do what it says. So I was thinking, and I'm going to get to the rest of this because I want to share the rest of this chapter as well. One of the biggest things that I think we all do is we will read something just so we get the gist of what we're supposed to do. And sometimes our reading doesn't have the depth that it needs to get us to where we need to be with whatever it is we're working through. And if I could say that in a less confusing way, um, sometimes we just read it to check it off of the list, to say, yeah, I got that, and then we move on. But then we don't really have that. We looked at it, but we didn't absorb it. So it's not a matter of having done what it says. Sometimes we just look at it, we read it. Yeah, it's in there, but what am I going to do with it? You have to take action on these things in order for the whole cycle to be complete. You can't just look at it and leave it. You have to look at it, process it, do something with it, and then file it away once you're done. And I think, as far as faith goes, definitely that's something we all do. You know, for a long time in my prayer life, I went through a period of time where I was looking at my Bible every day, but I wasn't really absorbing what I was reading, and it wasn't hitting my heart the way that I like for it to hit my heart. Um, Sometimes when I read, I feel it. I can understand it. I know that what I've just read has an impact in my soul. I know that it really sparks something in me and helps me to understand a broader concept that maybe I had just tucked away because I wasn't prepared to deal with it at the time that it hit me. And that happens a lot, especially when you are in survival mode, or if you are dealing with trauma, and you're in the middle of some bad things that you can't stop to process these things. Maybe a word will come to you at a time when you should be ready for it, because we're supposed to be ready and open to God's word. But being imperfect and being humans, maybe we put a wall up, or we shrug it off because we're just not able to deal with anything at the time that it comes to us. And we're not we're not allowing God to help us through whatever it is we're going through. So it bounces off of us, or it just kind of stays in our back pocket until we're ready to pick it up and look at it again. I've done that a lot in my life because I've gone through several different traumas and had lots of traumatic experiences um, that were very difficult for me at the time that I went through them, and for many years after. It took a very long time for me to be able to look at those things with any wisdom and with any ability to process it correctly and with any kind of faith or hope attached to it. Um, so it made sense to me that we need to take what we get from God. We need to take the word that we get from Him, and we need to make the time to look at it and study it and understand it and ask Him to help us absorb it and then use it for whatever it is that He intends for us to use it for. Because, He doesn't send us these things for no reason. Um, at least for me, that's been my experience, is that there's always a reason He sends me a particular word or an event or something that I am dealing with or going through. And most often, I think it's been to help me get rid of this nature that I have, this overly angry, um, frustrated nature that I carry. Because He doesn't want me to be that way. He wants me to be happy, and He wants me to trust Him enough, and trust that He has created me to be able to handle these things, and that He's not going to give me more than I can handle. And He wants me to work through that. He wants me to see what I'm doing and then fix it. So, um, again, I'm not splitting the atom or anything like that. I'm just trying to get a hold of my emotions as um, an older lady who is going through some very interesting changes in my life that make it a little bit more difficult to regulate my emotions sometimes. Let's just say it as nicely as we possibly can. Um, when we get to a certain age, sometimes it's a little more difficult for us to be patient. And if we're already someone who had trouble with that, well, this can be a really challenging time. Um, but in any case, no matter how challenging it is, God wants us to meet those challenges and know that we can conquer them with His help, as long as we lean on Him. You know. So later on in this particular chapter, it says, "Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in the mirror, and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like." Well, yeah, okay. That makes sense to me as well. Because, like, how many times have I looked in the mirror, and this is probably going to get into a whole different tangent that we may or may not be ready for today. Um, I've looked in the mirror, and I've kind of looked at myself just to see, am I acceptable in terms of, if I go out into the world today, do I look okay by their standards? Do I have any hair out of place? Did I draw any unnecessary lines with my makeup? This morning, I don't wear a lot of makeup, but what I do wear probably doesn't look great because I'm not a makeup artist, and I don't really want to put a whole bunch on because it just seems like a lost cause to me, really. So if you see me out, that's why I look the way I do. It's because, well, this is it. This is what you get. This is the best that I can do with what I've got. Um, I also, like everybody else, I'm checking to make sure I don't have anything weird on my face that shouldn't be there. Um, that, it becomes more and more challenging with age as my eyesight is not as good as it used to be. So, God help me if I have any foreign thing on my face that I didn't see when I looked in the mirror. Because, if I didn't see it, I didn't see it. So, But that's why I have to keep checking. I have to keep going back because sometimes I'll look at myself and then I won't even remember. Did I see if I had my earrings on? Did I see if what color shirt I was wearing or anything? It's just so busy and hectic sometimes I don't even remember who I looked at. And really, my picture of myself is uh, is a little different than what everybody else sees. And I think that a lot of times we get so caught up in the package and what the package looks like, we don't take time to get to know the person inside that package. And we make snap judgments based on what someone looks like. And I think, when I said this to myself before, I said basically, I'm an older white woman, and I just don't look very put together generally. I am not someone who wears like designer clothes. I'm not someone who puts a whole lot into their appearance. I just try to look clean and presentable, but not fancy or anything, because it's not that important to me that I look that way. Um, and then, like recently, I got my hair cut, and I went from being comfortable with the longer hair that I had, and being able to fix that up and make it look in a way that I thought was acceptable to the outside world. And now I have this strange haircut because it was just one of those hair donation haircuts. It was like put it in a ponytail and chop it off, and no shaping or anything like that. I don't care that much. It's just going to grow back out, and and then I'll donate it again in a few years or a year or so whenever it grows out. Um, but I noticed that with the haircut, my persona takes on a whole different look and meaning, and I look more like an older housewife type, with the weird bob haircut. And so I know that we all get really preoccupied with labeling people and putting them in a container, so to speak, as to this person looks like their personality would be like this, which is not accurate, and it's not a good way um, to judge people or whatever. We're not supposed to judge, but I'm saying in terms of assessing someone for what type of person they are and what their interests and things might be, we have our own ideas about that, whether we really want to be that way or not. We all have our biases and our ideas about this person looks this way, so they must be this, or they must like to do this, or they must believe this way. And it's not always true, obviously. Um, but we get really caught up in that, and we forget the person inside is someone that is very, very much like us, because we are all God's children and we are all made in His image. So, what our image looks like on the outside is a reflection of Him in some way. And the diversity out there shows you that God cannot just be, um, He can't be looked at in one way. He doesn't just look like one person or one thing. He looks like all of us. And I think we forget that a lot of the times. If we're all created in His image and we all look a little different, what does that tell you about how broad and how big our God is, and how diverse He is, and how versatile He is, and all of the things that He can be? Um, so, yeah, that's kind of where my mind went when I read the verse about the mirror, and I thought, okay, I can see that. I can see how that would be a thing. That would be a major stumbling block for people. So, um, because when you look in the mirror, you're not looking at your soul. You're looking at the outer person, and you're looking at just the package that people see and judge based on whether or not you're approachable, or you're someone that they should be afraid of, and And a lot of times you'll look at someone and you'll think they're a scary looking person, but they're really the nicest person in the world. Whereas you look at this person who looks really non threatening and they're probably one of the meanest people that you'll ever meet. And I've had that and many times in my life. I've always um, been surprised by what's in the package, you know. So, but you have to be willing to open it. You have to be willing um, to talk to people, to engage with people, and to move forward in conversations and things like that, to really understand how different we all are, while at the same time sharing so many qualities and traits. So, um, it's an interesting um, conundrum. So, um, let's see here. So, I talked about my haircut, which was very, very interesting. Um, to me, obviously, probably not very interesting to everyone else. Um, but then reading on through James, getting past that point with the mirror. Let's see here. It says, "Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." Okay. Well, isn't that the key? And how do we live in the world without being of the world? That's what they usually say in church, is that yes, we have to live in the world, but we are not to be of the world. Okay. And when you look at all the jargon and stuff around that, I'm sure people who don't go to church regularly um, probably look at that as, these people are nuts. What are they talking about? You can't be in the world and not of the world. It's all the same, right? Well, no, not really. And I know there has to be a better way to explain it, but I'm probably not the person to offer that. Um, because my take on it is just like this. Um, yes, I'm here. I'm living in the world, and I am observing things, and I'm taking things in, and checking things out. But there are only certain things that I allow to stay in my consciousness, to stay in my heart and my mind and my soul. And I had to do a lot of work to clean out a lot of the bad influences that I'd picked up over the years. Back when I went to church, after being out of church for a long time, I dropped everything. I thought, this is the way that I can do this. This is how I can not be of the world. I can just purge everything. I can get rid of anything that seems bad and just put a wall up. I don't need to understand that anymore. I don't need to be um, looking at any of this. And it was not really anything that was terribly bad. It was just there were different things that I thought had some ideas that I didn't want floating around in my head. And I was really trying to do a purge. But I carried it slightly too far in that, and I didn't realize this until I got deep into it, because I wasn't raised in church like from birth or whatever. I was in and out of church at various times during my life, often as my own person going to church, not as part of a family or anything. And I had lots of bad experiences with church. So I didn't have the same ideas about the world as those who have been lifelong church members. And they do have a very different way of looking at things. But as someone who has been in and out of the church and understood that my relationship with God continues no matter where I'm at, um, it became very clear to me that by blocking out everything that wasn't in the Bible or biblical or in the the big Christian manual that we somewhere are holding. That's not the Bible, by the way. There's some other, you know, mythical thing that I'm thinking of. Anyway, and of course, I'm kidding. But when you cut yourself off from the world completely, you also cut yourself off from being able to understand the people around you who have not yet met Jesus, who have not yet come into contact with God, because they either weren't brought up knowing Him, they were told that He didn't exist, whatever the situation might be. There are people out there who have not had the opportunity to know Him or meet Him or engage with Him because they didn't know He was there or whatever. I mean, yes, we all have the opportunity. Some people don't know we have that opportunity. So, in order for me to effectively minister to someone, I need to understand where they are. I need to understand where they've been. I need to be able to look at everything through eyes that understand what I should be seeing, and what I shouldn't be seeing, what looks right and what looks broken. I need to be able to discern that. And in order to do that, I need to be able to ask God to guide me through the process of discerning what I'm looking at. To just make a judgment call, cut it off, and not engage with people who drink or party or whatever it is they do, is not only, I think, very pretentious and somewhat haughty, if I need to use that word. I hate that word, by the way. I think there's a lot of judgment in that doesn't need to be. And I think that we are depriving ourselves of opportunities for ministry when we refuse to go around certain people, certain places, certain things. We have to be open to seeing the same things that people are seeing that are putting them in the wrong place. How else are we going to understand how to help them understand where the light is and how to get to it if we don't ever go into the darkness ourselves? So it's not right for everyone, but for me, I'm very much a person who thinks that the darkness is an absolute must. We need to understand it. We need to not be afraid of it. We need to engage with it in order to bring more people to the light. So, then I'll talk more about that next time. Hopefully, I'll have some more insights and things like that. Um, but really, these are all of the thoughts that I got from reading the first chapter of James. It was a very interesting reading for the day, and I'm very happy that I chose to do that. It was a lot more insightful for me than I expected it to be. So um, I may be all over the place, and you may not have gotten as much from it as I did. However, um, I think it was a necessary thing for me to share that with you, and I hope that you'll come back and listen to the next podcast so that I can maybe share some more with you. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and God bless you. Thanks for stopping by. Be sure to check out our website and blog. The blog is at www.leading-the-follower.com. Thanks and God bless.